Hi everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today, let's install the Cabane struts and get ready to mount that upper wing. Alright, I hope everybody that watched last week's video, with the twist of the tail, that took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but eventfully it's perfect. So I've got nothing bad to say about the time invested in that one. Today with the Cabane struts, so we're going to be mounting the Cabane struts up in the front, and then of course, even though you kind of call them Cabane struts, it's the rear struts for the top wing. When reading the instructions on this one, because if you've never done it before, read the instructions. Typical, just a slight bit of confusion. I've done Cabane struts in the past, just never done them on a Fokker yet. So it is a little bit different, and I knew what I was going to battle. And I've got them right now out there, and I'm going to be out there to show you. I've got them out there ready to solder. I've got to get the soldering iron out there and everything else. Normally I use a torch, but because you've got everything set up attached to a piece of wood, I'm not using a torch. So I've got to find my great big old fashioned 80 watt, 100 watt soldering iron. It's down there somewhere. I got to dig it out. And then we'll go ahead and get those things soldered together today. So at least the Cabane mounts, up the front ones, are ready to go. The rear ones aren't that much of an issue. I just need to make sure that everything is properly set up so it's straight. I have done a lot of it already off camera, just because I needed to dedicate almost 3 hours of my time just to make sure that everything is prepped and ready to go. Because on that stuff, it's the prep work. The soldering part, that's piece of cake. So let's go ahead and get you guys moved out there, and I'll go ahead and I'll grab the Canon and I'll give you a little walkthrough to show you where I'm at and what we need to do next. All right, once again, sorry about the light. We get to play around in the room of bright lights and shadows. As y'all can pretty much see, we're sitting actually pretty good where we want to be. At the moment, we're all set up. We got to figure out where the line is, and granted, I already know, I'll show you guys, it's set up so we're pretty much true to the fuselage going to the back. We rotate down, it's almost dead on. It's only off by just a, I don't know, let's just call it dead on. It's on so close it's almost dead on. What I did, I came in and made a little standoff on the bottom, the little prop. I got to glue this into place. See if I can show you. Because when it comes time to solder this, I want this. I want these little attachment points up here, the little brackets. I want it flat because the bottom of this wing should be at 0 degrees or the same as it is down here. So right now this is all set up to match what this is. The Cabane struts is just holding the front part of the wing. The rear part's going to come off this one back here, the rear one, and it's going to come straight up. So it's the rear one that's going to let you designate how much pitch you need to put in this top wing. So if adjustments need to be made, it's going to be done here, not back there. So let me go ahead, and I can smell the soldering iron getting hot. It's old school. This is really old school one. It hasn't been fired up in a while, so I got to clean it off first. So I'll do that, and then I'll come on in because everything's propped up. I need to make sure everything is properly in alignment. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a good camera view when I'm soldering this. So I'll give it a shot. If I can, you'll see it. If I can't, you won't see it. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but we're going to give it a shot. We at least got enough light on this side where I can shine the camera, point the camera up. Let's get to look at my face as I'm squinting, trying to get this thing attached. Alright, so once again, the other side is done, complete, dried, cooled down. Let's see how well this side goes. Hopefully just as nice. What I'm using some old, you might be able to see it, it's Kester solder paste. Not lying to you, I got this too probably when I was, I don't know, 18, 20 years old. And we are ready to solder again. And here we go. Right now I'm a left-hander living in a right-hand world, so let's go ahead and get this flux nice and toasty hot and get the metal heated up. Normally takes about a minute or so for it to get everything up to temperature, but I will be testing just to get it started, because flowing the solder inside helps get everything nice and toasty. I just need to make sure that that last one is set right where I wanted it. That'll work. Here we go. Now you can see we're getting hot. You have to get enough flux down inside there because there's a whole lot of soldering going in, and I need to make sure that we've got the proper etching all the way through. And pretty soon it should start pulling in solder. There we go. Alright, now we'll start eating up solder pretty quick. Okay, that should be done. Let's go ahead and get the sponge and start cooling it down. Okay, that's looking pretty darn good. She don't want to rotate. That's all good. All right, let me go ahead. We're going to leave this section here like it is. Let it all cool down, because right now to touch it's still hot. This side over here you can touch now, so it takes a good 2 or 3 minutes to cool down. Let's get it cooled down. We'll lift it apart. And then I need to make measurements on the top wing to see where these are going to have to go and get attached to. So even though I still have to do the rear ones first, because we've got to make sure we've got something to prop the wing flat. So let me go ahead and I will get the rears ready to go, because it's pretty much just, it's easy enough. It just slides in this side, and then we get to solder one of these things up on the top, which is easy enough to do because I've already got them bent into shape. Slide it on, solder it, and call it done. So it's pretty darn easy peasy on that. So let me go ahead and get the spark, bring it right back.
24 hours later.
All right, everybody, this is called dedication for you guys. Here's what I've got set up. It took me a while to get this all figured out. I got one camera right there. It is. I had my hand in the way. I've got the Canon up top facing down. I got my cell phone ready to go, and I got you guys on the Lumix. This is another conundrum. It's what happens. The video, when I was putting it together, I had everything set up, had it resting up on the Cabane mounts. The tail was a 1/4 inch lower than the front. And the reason why it was is because the rear Cabane mounts, they were flared out because where the front's triangulated, there's nothing on the back end of that. So they just flared out. So I already know with all the measurements I did with this little setup tool, my little square, the holes were drilled in the same location. You could see what the iron does to those things too when it gets hot. So those are my indicators. So when I'm going to be drilling the holes through the wing, that's where they're going to be located. That way I know they're the exact distance apart. Now, what I'm battling on is where is the center on this? And that's why I've got multiple cameras going. Let me go ahead and show you, because if you come on in and you see that the center line, we had to offset it. And this was the center line from the dots made up, because I came in, I measured from the top, from the leading edge of the wing to the other leading edge, put a mark halfway down. So we know that that's true. Back and forth, it measured the same. So there's the center. I came in on the rear, marked it off both sides, and we came in true to the center. Now the reason why this thing is set up where it's off to one side a little bit is that the person that originally made the wing has this whole section was not properly centered in like it should have been. You come on in and you can see that everything is relatively true to the lines going down. So this was built square. This is offset a little bit, about 3/16 of an inch. So with me making the measurement from there to there, you came up with it here, which in theory should have been correct, but it's really over here. So what he did is when he set this thing up, he did it, and it's hard to say, this was centered up with from there to there. It makes no sense, but this is the true center line of this whole wing. And that was why I had to set this whole wing up to the table. So I came on over, and as you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Yeah, I had them all out here. We were trying to make sure we had this up. So this, I came in from the table edge here, came in to the length of this square, made a mark. And then I did the same thing over there, made the mark. Then I came in with this square and came in, set it up to this marker line here, pulled this up against it, and then I put a clamp down. Did the same thing on that side. So I know that the leading edge of this wing is true to this table. Then I was able to come in here with more squares and set it up so that way I can get the true center line of where it needs to be, not in accordance to any mistakes that were made on the trailing edge of the wing, but true to the leading edge of the wing. And that's the important part, is that this needs to be true to the leading edge of the wing, because when I'm going to come in and make sure it's all squared up with the bottom wing and with the tail, I'm going to be putting my pins in out here in the same location from the leading edge of the wing, that side, and that's what I'm going to run back to the tail to confirm that everything is exact. Yes, this is my life, guys. So I came on in and look, so you can see through the plans that yes, we are perfectly in line with everything. So I'm good with this. So now this part here is, sorry about that. So this part here is in line. So this mark right here is in line with the center of the wing, not this little one here, this little tick that I put in there. There we go. So this part here is center. And now for drilling the holes, here's where it's going to come into play. This is the jig I made for setting up the Cabane mounts. And so we're going to come on in, and you know that I made this perpendicular. So this was going straight back to the fuselage, so we knew that this was perpendicular to the fuselage on the center point. So we know, so we can trust this because this is a true square to the airplane. So what we'll be doing is coming in, and once I get the marks where they need to be, we'll be lining this up with, and then you can see that is where, I don't know how far forward it's going to be. I got to make that measurement first. But we know that this is where this hole is going to get drilled, and this is where this hole is going to get drilled. And then we're going to do the same exact thing as we come back down to here, where we're still following the square line. And then wherever this pinpoint needs to be on it to bolt it through, this and this is going to be square. So that way, at that point in time, when we hook everything up, the wing will be, and we're going to test it, and I'm going to show you that this will be square, and hopefully it'll be square very closely to 100% on that one, because I want the 90 on it. If for some reason it's a little bit off, the first hole that we're going to attach is the same size hole as this. I think according to the plans, I think it was a 5/32 hole, which is like a 22 wire size drill bit. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, drill it through, so when we're running the bolt through into here, it's going to cut some threads going through. So the little T-nut that we're going to be using to attach it to this side, you have to oversize drill this hole anyway. So if there's any adjustments I need to make, I can come on in with one of my little die grinders and then make that adjustment to make sure that when this thing gets bolted into place through the T-nuts, it is square to the fuselage. To get us started, what I did is I came on in, and you can kind of see, okay, let me slide this back, it's a little more light. What I did is I came on in, and because I did not want to measure from, let's just call it it's the joiner. It's a spar, but it's pretty much the part that attaches the center section to the wings. Yay! So it's just a light ply. So because this part, as you can see, is bowed out, I couldn't use that as a reference. So I came in and I made a measurement from the spar out to where the hole needs to be drilled, and that came out to be 8 millimeters. So I came on the inside of this one, measured out 8 millimeters, and hopefully you can see this okay. There you go. We're at 8 on that side, came over, did the same thing on this side, so we had the 8 mil on this side, and we are good on that as well. So I'm okay with that. So that's going to be our reference mark to make it even with the front of the wing. And then I came in and measured straight back because it was 135 millimeter or 5 1/4 inches. So I came back, struck a line down here, came from here, struck a line down there. And I don't know how well you can see this one. You can kind of see this, the circle. So I've got a hit in the center of that and in the center of that mark, because once again, here it is. This is the day of squares, just in case you didn't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Yeah, I got issues, but you want to make sure you're getting this right the first time. So I came in, got this thing lined up where it needed to be on the center line, came over, and then when I got the line in the middle of the hole here, I just drew a circle. So at least now we have 4 very good reference points to go ahead and drill this hole, and then get this thing back up on the top of the fuselage and see how well I did. As you can see, the wing is permanently attached to the Cabane mounts front and rear. And let's go ahead and see how close we are to having the wing in the right location. And I'm hoping you're going to see this good enough through the camera. So let's come on in. There is our marker line right down there, that dot. So we're going to head out here to this corner. And if I cannot struggle to get that on there, we're going to come on down here, and we're at 64 5/8. Remember that, 64 5/8 inches. And I hope you got your fingers crossed on this side, because I know it's close. I just don't know how close it's going to be, because in theory it should be dead on. And we're just inside. We're 1/16 of an inch. So we're 64 9/16. So I'm okay with that 1/16 of an inch. So let's call that solid. Couldn't find a tape measure, but we still have a ruler. So let's go and see how well I can get this camera up inside there so you can see what we're looking at. Okay, so we are on the front side. So we're going to be measuring to the bottom of the rib cap. And hopefully we're going to be able to see this okay. We are at approximately 14 7/8 inches. So 14 7/8 inches. And we're going to come to the rear section behind the secondary spar. And we are approximately 14 11/16. So we are about 1/8 of an inch, less than 1/8 of an inch drop. So if we're looking at, and I'll go over into the shop over there and get some measurements for you. I want to know where this is in relationship to that, because we know that that's 3.6 degrees. We know that this is going to be a little bit positive, not much. Maybe it's going to be less than a degree. So let me get the measurements, and then we'll do a recap. Because it's easier to just keep using this camera back here and have a little bit of a nice background instead of the mess on the shop on the other side. Let's go ahead and figure out what it's going to be. So we're going to figure 1/8 of an inch, 3 millimeters. It's easier for me to do it in millimetrics. I measured this kind of off camera because you didn't see it. From here on up to the front, it's 405 millimeters. So 405 millimeters by a rise. So that's the run. The rise is 3 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is come into my scientific calculator, do a cotangent, which is the opposite of a tangent. It's to a -1 exponential. So we're going to do a cotangent of the rise divided by the run. So the rise is 3 millimeters. Going to divide that by 405 millimeters. And hopefully you're going to be able to see this okay if we can get it into some kind of focus. If you can't, it's going to be right there. It's 0.424 degrees. So we're looking at less than 1/2 of a degree. I'm completely okay with that, because remember, this thing is almost a degree steeper angle of attack than on the plans for this. Now, it's probably going to come up in the next video when we're actually gluing or fastening the horizontal stabilizer. I was out to a friend's house, Larry DeRubo, and we're going to end up doing a project build, a team build on a Fokker DR1, and he asked me to do the wings for that build, and so that's going to be, of course, 3 wings for me. So of course all the cameras will be out there and you'll see it too, but what we did on that one is we took 3 sets of plans, and it was a real set of plans for a Fokker, and that was for the Fokker D.VII. A real set of plans from the museum of it's over in the Netherlands. I think it's the Air Museum of Belgium, and they took a real one they were restoring, and you can go onto that and figure out the real angle of attack of that horizontal stabilizer, and you'll see the numbers when we get to the next part of this. But they ranged everywhere on a set of plans that I had, which was, it's like 1/2 degree, or like point something degree, all the way up to, and I think it was the Proctor kit was 5.11, so 5.11 degrees of inclination on that horizontal stabilizer. So I'm kind of okay with this. So if this thing was set up to fly with this at 0, without me putting any shims in here, we're at 0.42 degrees positive, but then of course on the back we went from 2.75 to 3.6. So almost guaranteed any changes in this with that little bit of up is going to be completely negated by the tail. And the reason why I said that was, if you watch the build on the Tailorcraft, I really wish I knew which build it was, but it was at least one video where I had to reset the tail, because the plans that were originally drawn, anybody that built it had problems, because under speed, that Tailorcraft wanted to keep climbing, which is the problem you have with these things if the wing's too positive, and you got to make it even negative, because it's supposed to be 0, but if it still climbs, you make it negative. What I had to do to that plane was I got a real set of plans, because Larry DeRubo, once again, his dad used to own a Tailorcraft. And so, of course, I was able to get all the information from him. And I set that tail because it didn't have enough positive angle of attack on the horizontal stabilizer, as soon as I put the tail where it's supposed to be and had the wing where it's supposed to be, when I took off and flew that plane, there was zero trim on that tail. So that's one of those planes that when you build it to the real scale of the plane, and we're talking a 3rd scale tailorcraft, it weighs empty 35 pounds. So you know, you put pretty much a half a pound of gas, or it's actually 24 ounces of gas, and another 24 ounces of smoke oil. So if you add all that up, you're looking at 4 extra pounds. So that thing's taken off at 39, and it flies great. So I'm not concerned about the angle of the horizontal stabilizer, or properly right now, the angle of attack on the wing. They should negate each other completely, and everything should fly fine. And like I said, if I have to, I'll come underneath the rear spars, or not the rear spars, the rear, because it's going to have to go all the way across too. It won't just be on the Cabane mounts, it's also going to have to be on the rear of the end strut. So I'm going to have to work with those things too, because I'm still not 100% sure how the end struts get attached, because the instructions are garbage. I'm a guy, I want pictures. So what we're going to do next is going to be the end struts. So that's going to be the fun part, is to try to figure out by reading the instructions on what the heck I have to do, and then to try to find the parts. Because if I can't do it the way I want it to, and I think I know where the parts are, they're just very improperly labeled, I will make my own out of brass. So where the plane is sitting right now, I'm happy. And I think it's probably the best way to, let's call this a video. And then I will see you guys next time. I'm back down in the shop.